morning, everybody. Welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversations. I'm Jeff Rabinowitz, and this season we are bringing in voices from all sides to challenge assumptions, bridge divides, and build a better understanding of today's biggest issues. Today, I am with a good friend and a great businessman, Rick Copley. Also, I think you were a former CrossFitter and healthy liver still till today, right, Rick?
I'm always a healthy guy. As far as being a CrossFitter, yeah, that was in a past life, but it's certainly not anymore. I've gotten kind of past that. Now it's just more about healthy living and helping people out, and changing lives.
And you're doing I always say you've got one of the most especially for food service, one of the most successful business models. And I saw this story that you told on Facebook, and it was about this box in the corner of your office. You thought about starting this business, and then you dithered with the idea, but when you kicked it off, you kicked it off. So, and that's a part of this podcast is really not healthy living and successful living really go hand in hand. There's a lot of challenges. Warren Buffett often says the reason for the growing chasm between rich and poor is life has gotten more complicated. Years ago, everybody was a farmer, so everybody had equal skills. 300 years ago, he says, as I quote. We don't have equal skills. So I always want to talk to successful people. Tell me your story about how you chose to start this business, Lake Commissary, right? Lake County Commissary.
That
Um,
that's one of our companies. Yeah, we have a bunch. We do a lot over here.
that's great. So tell us about them. Tell us how you decided to start the any of them really.
Yeah, so I've always kind of had a mindset of entrepreneurship. I've always kind of wanted to kind of be my own boss. I think though the problem is that a lot of times people like me when they're young are a little bit too enthusiastic, or maybe they're not don't stick to things or whatever. So I had challenges running businesses growing up or becoming a young adult, which is I think what a lot of us run through, right? And there's if we don't have challenges and we don't stick to it and get past it, it's hard to succeed long term. And so I had a bunch of different things I did when I was younger. And then we ended up with the gym here in Tavares. We had a gym called No Limits Fitness. And about 7 years ago, I decided that we wanted to kind of add a component by starting a meal prep company. Basically, the idea, Jeff, was simply to provide a service to our members. I think that's what it's all about, right? We're trying to help people long term, and that's really how businesses start. Like, hey, what service can I provide, right? So it's really in the beginning just a way to kind of earn some extra money, help our members a little bit. And so we started a meal prep business. And kind of like you alluded to, when we decided to do it, we said, okay, we're going to do it. We bought some meal prep containers and they sat over in the corner of my office for about 6 months. The reason was, Jeff, and this is important, and the important lesson out of this is that I just kind of wasn't ready and I didn't have my mind wrapped around the process yet. And one of the things that we have to learn with entrepreneurship and growing anything is that no matter what we do or don't have in terms of knowing the next steps, either our knowledge, time, money, experience, there's never going to be a perfect time, right? There's never like, hey, I'm ready, let's go. You always have to kind of build your wings on the way down, learn as you go. And so eventually I said, you know what, let's just do it. Open that box, designed a website, made some menus, put it out there. And then we learned along the way how to do it. We learned we were good at it, and we learned that it can be a business that could sustain a long term. And so we did the things we needed to do. And long story short, in the course of 7 years, we've grown a pretty massive company called Empower Meal Prep, and we serve people all over Central Florida. And I think we're helping people. And I hear people all the time. And someone told me this is a very recent story. There's a lot of them, but I like to share the most recent one, right? One of the things we do is we do meal prep, and we also have part of our meal prep is, since we love dogs and we have dogs, we make some dog food for our furry friends, right? And one of our customers actually told us that her dog is staying alive because the dog is now eating, because it wouldn't eat. Now it eats our healthy dog food. So we're changing this person's life because they have a dog that's sticking around for an extra few months, few years, whatever. And so that type of stuff really warms my heart. So long story, kind of all that into one little snippet is that, when you have an idea, you have a business idea, you have a plan, oftentimes a plan isn't going to work. You just got to do it. go start, open that box. And that was the lesson that I shared in that Facebook post. Like, hey, open the box, get going, start the process. And business ownership, and hopefully we can kind of delve into this at some point, but business ownership used to be, and I'm glad you talked about this because I thought about this on the way over here to do this call, but in the past, you put up a sign, you had a product, people showed up and they bought your product. It was pretty simple. Maybe you advertised a little bit, but today, man, there's so much more to running a business. There's so much more to things you have to do. And if you don't do them, people slide right by you. So that's kind of a little bit about our journey. And, obviously there's a lot more to it. I can delve in any part you want, but that's kind of where we are right now.
So let me let me try to get you to delve into some of it by asking some questions. First of all, the
Sure.
one thing you mentioned is paralysis through analysis. How long do people think about doing things and not ever do anything? So that's like this podcast. We've had a lot of false starts. We've had a lot of epic fails. I believe we're on the right path now, but it wasn't easy. And I'm actually one not to overanalyze. I just started this thing. It was me and Zach. You know Zach, my good friend Zach.
Yeah.
We were sitting in a park talking about stuff, and then I said, and Zach came up with the idea of let's do it via video. But so there was the initial point, was paralysis through analysis. The other thing is, like you said, business has gotten so complex because it's not about any longer opening a business, putting a sign up. And again, I'm going to quote Warren Buffett. He calls it a moat. A moat is essentially an emotional connection to a business. So if I
Mhm.
call Rick Copley's kitchen, get my food delivered, I lose weight, I feel good about myself, I meet my wife, there's a connection there for life. I'm always going to love Rip Copley's food. It changed my life. It changed this particular couple's life. They're making their dog carry on, and that's a significant part of many of our lives. Our dog is a big part of many of our lives. So, um, just delve into it, whatever you think. I just wanted to make that statement that you're having an incredible business. Like you said, you've expanded it in several directions. One is the dog food, which is probably doing really well because probably every one of your customers, or 80% of your customers, has dogs.
So here's what I like to talk about with especially with new business owners, and I call it like the valley of death, right? So if you start a business, it doesn't matter what you do. Right from the get-go, you're automatically, your friends and family, cool, hey, you're starting a business. Let's buy your product or do your thing or have your service, whatever. People it's always relatively easy to get that started. But here's where the challenge comes, right? The next step is that valley of death. This is where between that point and having a successful business that's sustainable, is you got to learn all the processes to make it work, right? So one of the things I like to talk about is the three P's. It's people, right? So you got to have customers. You got to know what to do with your customers. You got to know what to do with your where to find your customers, what to do with them, how to sustain product sales from them. You have to have a product, right? And I always talk about these in different order because they're all important. You have to have some sort of product or service you have. And then you have to have some sort of system or some sort of, so you got your product, you got your people, and you got your process, which is your system. So you got to figure out all those things and how they work together. And it's going to be different for every business. So, in order to get yourself from that point where you're just getting started to that point where you have a great business, you have to learn a lot of stuff. And I can tell people, and I always tell people, I'll tell you, I'll tell your listeners, the process, it's often a lot harder and more complex, more challenging than you think it's going to be. And I don't mean to dissuade anybody from business ownership because of that. Like, oh my gosh, it's going to be too hard. I don't want to do it. But I'll say the second part of that, the corollary is this: it's actually more rewarding than you ever think it's going to be. So there's kind of two parts that yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. You're going to have to learn a lot of stuff. But once you do have it and you are successful, then you get the rewards from it. And the rewards are a lot of things, Jeff. Like it's monetary. Some businesses make a lot of money, which is cool. Sometimes you have free time at certain areas. Sometimes you have the freedom to do, and this is something people don't think about as much. Sometimes you have the freedom to do what you want to do with your businesses, right? So for me, and going kind of in a little corollary to this, I started in Power Meal Prep 7 years ago. Like, I don't know how to market this, but when I figured it out, we really started doing well. And so over the years, I started thinking like, wait a minute, what part of this process of growing a company do I really enjoy doing? Well, I enjoy the social media side of it. And I enjoy growing the social media presence and bringing in sales through the use of social media. So that's why I started the latest company, which is Dragonfly Ridge Social Media Management. And what we do at DFR Social is we help businesses like mine to learn how to utilize social media to grow their presence in the marketplace. You know that 78% of people go on social media every single day to look for products. Like people that are going to social media, almost all of them going to social media to look for stuff. So it's just such an area that we all don't do well enough in businesses. So that's one of the things. So that's kind of for me, the benefits of what I do or what I've done as an entrepreneur is I'm able to kind of go in the direction that I want to go. And along those lines as well, I opened a commercial kitchen, not because hey, I said when I was young, hey, I want to own a commercial kitchen when I grow up, right? But that's a service that I needed for my business, and I can provide it a service to other businesses. Now we have dozens and dozens of food trucks and caterers and people that do jars, jams, and jellies that are a member of our kitchen can have a business of their own because we give them the opportunity to do that. So, when you look at the benefits of what you do as an entrepreneur and growing businesses, there's so many benefits, and you have to learn how to appreciate those benefits. But I can never stress enough that it's hard. It's hard, and it's hard, but it's rewarding at the end of the day.
So this is incredible. So some of the things you said, I'm going to build on some of the things you said here. First of all, you have a kitchen that you utilize quite often for quite a voluminous amount of business. You're providing hundreds of meals every week. You're delivering them, and they provide a healthy option. They provide a person with a difficult schedule to eat a real meal rather than versus stopping at McDonald's. So this is a beautiful thing. Then you've got the shared kitchen, like you said. You've got food trucks. You're because I've rented your kitchen. You're partially renting your kitchen to these food trucks to utilize. So we've got the shared economy component, kind of like the Ubers and kind of like the Lyfts. We've got the shared economy component. You've encompassed all this in your business. Now I'm going to go off to the left. I'm going to go off and segue from it. I've said, just like I said before, Warren Buffett said, in order to succeed nowadays, it's more difficult than ever before. Things have gotten, just like you said, things have gotten extremely complicated. I remember when I was a kid, I started a commercial cleaning business. First thing I did was call the Yellow Pages. $300 a month, and that's it. I knew at the end of the year I had to have $3,600 in the bank to cover that tab. It's not that way anymore. There's numerous expenses to advertising. And how do you pick those different? How do you pick? There was really that one option, is my point, and you were able to navigate it fairly simply. Um, my point that I'm landing at is, how do we convey this message to children in the K through 12 education system? Because they're coming into this world that is not the world we came into. We're essentially the same age. It is very difficult to compete in business today. We're competing against the world. The internet enables you to compete against the world. It's no longer dad drives by Tom's barbecue. Tom's barbecue could be in a warehouse delivering all over the world, advertising all over the world. So, and these are, I'm not, like you said, the challenges are enormously rewarding. They could be an important part of your life, just as far as a part of your life that just makes you feel good about yourself. But how do we make people, how do we teach people, well, just like you learned the hard way, how do we convey some of these messages so you can skip some of the false starts and skip some of the epic fails?
I think that's a extraordinarily good question, my friend, and I appreciate that question, and I appreciate the fact that there's people like you asking the question, right? I think the model that most of us are taught growing up, I know I was taught this in the 80s growing up, and go to college, right? You get your diploma, go to college. Then when I was in college, go to grad school, get these pieces of paper. And I think that the education system is great for a lot of things, right? A lot of things. But I think too many people are kind of pushed in that direction when at the end of the day, they get out with that piece of paper and go, well, what do I do now? Well, okay, I can get these jobs. But they start looking at people like you and I and other business owners that are having businesses. Well, I want to do that, but you're not trained to do that. You're trained to be an employee, and you kind of have to learn as you go. The reality of it is this, and here's the key to it. We have to teach our young people that they have choices in life. They have choices of what they want to do. And so when they do go to high school, and I encourage everybody to finish high school, that's the first step, number one. But when you're in that process, you have to start saying, okay, what direction do I want to go in? Like, what do I want to do? right? And then once you start doing that, then you got to start asking questions and talking to people that have done what you want to do, right? So for me, I know when I was in college and I started thinking like, what do I want to do, right? And I had a dream and a vision to be a coach. Like I was a varsity athlete, Division I athlete, and I was a distance runner. And I was want to do. I want to coach distance runners, right? And so when I was there, I was in my mind go, what do people that do what I want to do? What do they do next, right? And I'm glad I had that forethought. Well, I saw that a lot of coaches start out as graduate assistants. So I said, I'm going to go to graduate school and be a graduate assistant, right? So that's what I did. So I kind of took that next step. I think we need to encourage and teach our young people that you have choices in life with what you want to do. If you want to be a business owner, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to do what you want to do, we have to teach them when they're younger. It's like, hey, let's start leaning in that direction. Let's start talking to people, finding wings to climb under, you know? But that being said, you got to pay your dues, and there is no escaping that. You know, you have to either work in your industry for a long time or work in a different industry while you're saving money. Because, you know, starting a business, and I had a talk with someone yesterday who's making some desserts and stuff. And I said, listen, here's the thing that you have to do at your point in your business. You either got to figure all this stuff out, like put extraordinary amounts of time and energy into figuring out how to run this business to produce a long-term business that's sustainable. Or you have to have some sort of, you know, I call it stroking checks, right? You got to hire someone to do it. And the same thing goes for like learning how to grow a business. You can hire a coach, you can figure it out along the way. But in terms of how do you correct or how do you figure out the answer to, hey, how do you build Empower Meal Prep in a shorter amount of time? The answer is you really have to do one of those things. Either do it in the trenches, find someone to do it for you. And you know, it's hard because the education system, I don't think is ever gonna kind of go in that direction. I think the education system is the education system. They train you to have a job, or if they're training to be a manager, they're training you to be a manager at a job. You know, there's not as much entrepreneurship taught. Most of what you learn from about growing businesses, being a business owner in college or even high school, you're actually better off learning it in the real world from coaches. You know, and so that's kind of my thought. I think that, you know, I think that the people that this country we need to let our kids know that they have options beyond being employees. Now, granted, don't get me wrong. Some people need to be employees their entire life because they're never going to do that next process. But to your point too, I remember years ago, and like what you said, like, you know, you go to the yellow pages, right? Sign up and they grow a business. And that's how you did it. And this is the short story I like to share here is that when I was in high school, so this is the late 80s, I used to run road races, right? That was my thing, running road races on the weekends. So there was one place to find out where the road races were, Cape Cod Times. Pick up the newspaper on Sundays. They had the schedule. I cut it out, pinned it up. There's a phone number, whatever. I called them, hey, where's the race? Let me sign up. That was the only place you went to look. Now, if you want anything, you're going to have to go all kinds of places to look. And if the person, the product service you're looking for isn't on Google, on Facebook, on the different things, then you're not going to find them. And the businesses that are just getting started are going to get lost. So it's a new world we live in, and it's very much a challenge. I don't know the answer to the question, but that's what I would suggest is point our kids in the right direction of choice.
So that's like you said, and I don't see any need for a giant change in the education system. I don't see the opportunity to have that giant change. We've got a curriculum, we've got a brick and mortar system. We've got one of the strongest unions in the country is the teachers union. So you're up against that too. One of the strongest unions the strongest union in the country and in the world is the teachers union. You're up against that. I'm not opposed to any of that, but when I say my podcast is Political Liberator, it's really education and success based. I'm really trying to get to answers that enable people to succeed bigger and better over time. And like you said, you did it. You did it, Rick. And it wasn't easy. And you started like a lot of young people, and you kept at it. And now you've really found some really successful opportunities to keep growing. I say my point has always been, can we offer it as an extra curriculum over and above the education system online, just like we've said, online is the way of the time. That kids can actually say, I want to do this life success course, whatever it is in particular. I want to learn more about being a coach. And like you said, you found your way. Go online, go on this course do the course and make it incentive based, where you can actually receive something for completing it with some sort of essay question type completion part. And I know it sounds crazy. And the reason I say that is because, again, maybe let me just talk about Jeff Bezos, for example. He says when if we're not failing, if we're not really messing up, we're not hitting the ball hard enough. He empowers his employees to start new businesses. They come up with an idea, he says, let's go with it. Generally, they don't work, but some do. Um, I feel like in our education system, we haven't swung the ball at all in 50. We haven't swung the bat at all in 50 years. We haven't changed a thing in 50 years. But life has changed. So, for example, I remember when I was a kid, I didn't know anything about investing. But like I said, I started a commercial cleaning business. I was cleaning a rental place, stripping, waxing the floors, cleaning a rental place. The owner says, you should buy Home Depot stock. I didn't even know what he was talking about. But you know what? If I had any idea what he was talking about and I bought Home Depot stock at the time, I'd probably be doing okay today. These are all these missed opportunities. And like you said, then you go down these rabbit holes. I got my college degree. I got a job I really don't care for. I don't know where to go from here. I really believe we need to do better with that and enable people with the knowledge, young people with the knowledge, to really do what they want to do with life. And that doesn't mean not working a job. But
Here's what I want to kind of throw into that, and I'm not going to say I'm disagreeing with you, because I think in general we agree very much like that there needs to be some sort of option. But here's what I want the mindset to kind of think about. I want you and your listeners to kind of think about. People go to college because they think they have to, and I think that there's too many of us that are, I don't want to say forcing. I'm not sure people force, but they look at college as this great option because, for one thing, they want a sense of being part of something, right? And so, the March Madness is going on right now. I mean, when I went to college, I was like, yeah, cool. My team is in March Madness, right? That's kind of a cool thing. A lot of people go there because they think that that's kind of where the people go because they're successful, or they go because they should. They go for whatever reason. People are doing that, and I think the problem is this. I think that many people, many have the mindset is that the college is somehow more important than other stuff. But here's the reality. Most of us that are successful in later life didn't get there because we went to college. Not all. I mean, I won't say I don't even know what the percentage is, but there's a lot of people that didn't do well in college or got out of college, went in a completely different direction, may have learned some stuff. I know I learned some stuff. I learned a little bit. I mean, for me, I went to college to, be an athlete. But, all my business stuff, I got nothing from college. And I think that piece of paper, there's too much stress on that piece of paper. There's people like Mike Rowe, from the Dirty Jobs guy, saying, listen, you don't necessarily need that. There's so much more to do in life than to simply go to college. So many people going to college, they're going way into debt, and they don't need to do all that stuff. I get what you're saying about having some sort of like, hey, take this course online and it gives you college credit. I think that's kind of what you're going with that.
well, it
And I
gives you
think that's
life
okay.
lessons.
It gives you life lessons, but I think the reward of something like that isn't necessarily that you get a degree from whatever. The reward for something like that is that you get to go and start and run a business, or you get to go and help other people, or and change the world in some way, shape, or form. And I think that when you look at the movers and shakers out there, the movers and shakers, and a lot of them in politics, in business ownership, and in entrepreneurship, all the different people you see out there, a lot of the people that we look up to, they don't necessarily they aren't necessarily there because of what they did in their post high school years in college and graduate school. Sometimes, yes, people want to be doctors, lawyers, things like that. You got to go to college, right? You got to do that. You got to start there. But I think that there's too much of a stress on that importance of that. The stress needs to not be on that piece of paper you get. The stress needs to be on the process of learning and growing and becoming a better human being. I think that a lot of what you see in college is just a waste of time. It's like, why are you teaching all this stuff that you don't necessarily need? All these prerequisites and whatnot, all this diversity stuff that they're forcing down your throat may seem important to the people that are forcing it down your throat, but a lot of that's control, and a lot of that's just not important. A lot of it's important learning how to think for yourself and learning how to develop a life that you want. I don't want the life that someone says, hey, here's what's important. I want the life that I want. I don't take back my college years at all, but here's part to my point a little bit is that I went to college to compete as an athlete. I couldn't do that anywhere else. I was forced into that. When I'm in high school and I'm, a state champion runner and things like that, and I'm like, well, what do I do next? well, the college coaches come to my college, we'll help you get in, whatever. And so, cool, that's what I do next. If there was another option, I probably would have chosen it. But would have my life been different? I don't want to say, I don't want to kind of go down the rabbit hole saying college is bad, because I don't think it is. But I think that, when you say college hasn't changed in 50 years, well, the world's changed, right? The world's changed a little bit, a lot. And there's too many people that are just, and there's also, and I don't want to go too much of my soapbox here too, but I think there's a lot of people that, whatever reason, can't go to college, don't go to college, and feel like, well, maybe they should have, and they somehow missed out. And so they get this impression that all they can do is, work minimum wage jobs. And the reality is if you don't figure out how to kind of learn and grow, which you can do in college, right? Then it's kind of a catch-22. So I'm not going against schooling. I think that the whole education system needs to be completely revamped. And I think that there's too much of it that's so entrenched that it's going to be ridiculously hard to change. And I know we're not you're not into talking politics and like disagreeing and fighting with politics here. But I think one of the benefits of the concept of what you see President Trump doing is that they're taking a lot of what we already have. Hey, let's just throw this out and let's try to start new and let's see if we can create something better. Now, is that the right way to do it? There's arguments both ways, but I see the concept, and that's why I think it's probably good to kind of make some big changes, as painful as they can be. As some of them aren't right in my mind, but some of them are. So that's kind of some of my ramblings and my ramblings on that. So I know you may or may not agree with some of that stuff, but
No,
that's
I
kind of how
agree
I
fully.
feel.
I think Donald Trump has taken some big steps, and I think the problem is that whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I've always said, there's this old saying, and I am kind of get into politics in a small degree here, but there's this old saying: Republicans have no shame and Democrats have no spine. That the problem, it's not about shame or
Spoken like a true
spine.
liberal.
It's not about shame or spine. It's about Republicans have a plan. And whether you like that plan or not, they go and out and they execute that plan. And now what's happening is Democrats are just saying that plan is awful. Well, I'm saying to Democrats, who I'm a Democrat, it doesn't really matter. What is your plan? I
Yeah.
understand you disagree with this plan. I disagree with a lot of points on it, but I'm tired of hearing about what you dis. So, for example, and I just had this vague idea. They're talking about taking the phones out of Social Security. It's a big deal. The phone system is a big deal for the elderly people and the people who aren't necessarily IT informed. I said, if Democrats are so worried about it, create your own Doge. Create 1,000 kids that'll pick up the phones from old people and screen share with them and walk them through the process of how to navigate this new website at Social Security. Create a counter something. Create a plan. Say, okay, he's in power. He's doing this, but let us help the people that what he's doing is hurting, and let's come to a compromise on how we improve the system altogether. But
Yeah,
all we're
I
really doing
agree.
is fighting each other.
So it would be 100% reversed, right? If we talked about like a Democratic administration coming in, and here's our plan, and all the Republicans do and say, "Oh no, we just don't like your plan." It's like then they have a plan and you don't, and this seems to happen every time we switch, right? Um, here's the thing, and this is the political part that I like to talk about, is that at the end of the day, there's always going to be kind of a view on one side and a view on the other side, right? There's always people that think one way or the other, and one way and then the opposite way. My thing is that the answer is usually somewhere in the middle, right? And the idea is that instead of like shouting from the rooftops, think of it like this. So let's say, so I tend to vote Republican. So I'm more of a right wing type of person. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I'm right of center. I mean, you may be left of center, which is cool. Say you and I are talking politics, and it's like a highway, right? I'm on my side driving a million miles an hour, shouting from the rooftops. Here's what I see. This is it. This is the only way. And you're on the left side, and the left side of me, right? Right side of you. And you're doing the same thing, shouting from the rooftop. This is my way. But the reality of it is, instead of us just flying by each other screaming, we need to stop, pull over to the side of the road, go to this park, and have a discussion. And I think that, instead of being like, I'm right, you're left, I'm right, you're wrong, whatever, you're right, whatever it is, it's like, hey, let's look at this issue. Let's talk about this. What do you think we should do? So a perfect example, and this is, we're not going to change any issues here, but it's a great thing to kind of dialogue about something. So like you said, like the phone thing. So here's kind of the right thing. And I hadn't heard about that, but I sounds about right. They're like, no, everything's going to go online. That makes sense. It makes sense in a practical standpoint. But boots on the ground, a guy that runs a business where I talk to people all the time that say, well, I want to order, but I don't use the internet. You know, there are people out there. So like, okay, this may be the idea of the right. Let's just say the right. That's their idea. That's the thing. I may have voted for that concept, that party, but I don't agree with that. Right? And so, you may have voted the other side that said, okay, let's never switch to all internet or whatever. Let's do all phone. If that, I mean, I know that's not the thing, but just to say that is, but there's a middle ground there. There's a middle ground, and there's a middle ground in every issue. And so here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. Number one, you're seeing people on both sides that refuse to talk. I did a video the other day on my Facebook, and my video basically was this. It was not meant to be either side. It was like, hey, you're upset, you're happy, you're whatever it is. That's cool, but that's not helping. Let's sit down, let's talk about issues, let's dialogue. And I actually had one of my Facebook friends, a liberal, went on her Facebook and posted right after I did that video. One of my Facebook friends said we should talk, and I'm not talking. The other side is morally wrong. I will not talk to anybody there. And then posted like a picture of Donald Trump, whatever. So anybody that voted for him, I will not dialogue with, whatever. And, again, that's not a spite at the left because I don't care either way. I run my business. I care about who's my house, not the White House, whatever. But the point is this. The point is that we're never going to see change in anything until we decide like, hey, let's sit down and talk about this. Let's get people that have one view here, and then people in the middle, and then let's try to dialogue about stuff. At the end of the day, when you look at Republicans, Democrats, right, left, whatever, and we look at, obviously it's a dichotomy, right? You vote one side or the other, but all the issues are black and white. There's so many different issues. There's so many different ways to put it. And so, I don't think that people that voted left or right, I don't think they're bad people at all, at any way, shape, or form. I don't care who people are. I think you're a great person. I mean, you may have voted the different way than I did, right? But I don't care, whatever. But I'm sure there's issues we could dialogue and talk about. But so that's kind of my take on the whole political thing. And I think that there needs to be more people like you and I that sit and discuss. Hey, let's talk about what we want to talk about. Let's agree on some things, maybe disagree on other things, but it is what it is. But let's not get mad about it. Let's have a drink and stuff after dinner, afterwards, whatever. But I think
Yeah.
that's where things need to go. And I think the problem is that, and this is a two-sided thing, because I remember when was it? I think 2012, right? When Obama took over, right? Was that 2012? I don't
Two,
remember. It must have been because
2008.
2008. Okay,
Yeah.
2008. That's 2008 when Obama took over. There was a lot of people that are with right-leaning Republican type people that are having meltdowns. Like the world is over now because the left is taking over and they're going to destroy everything, and similar things happen in 2020. And it's like and so and we're kind of all of a sudden the right's like, oh, and we're just going to entrench our feet, and then they do what they said they weren't going to. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep in that because
No,
I don't
no, we
want the
don't have to
negativity.
because
I don't want the
there's like,
negativity to pull it down. I want to keep it positive, but I think going forward in terms of taking kind of a negative idea and concept and making it positive, people need to talk about stuff. People need to understand that just because they have an opinion, whether they think it's right or wrong, it's their opinion, it's the way they feel. Other people may feel differently, and that's okay.
well, I really think we're not getting negative at all. I think it would be nice to if one thing voters did was start calling not about the issues, start calling their lawmakers about if you do not reach out to the right, or if you're on the right, if you do not reach out to the left and show us that there's some sort of conversation going on, I won't vote for either one of you. Because this is the only way we're going to resolve it. Is where we're at now is at an impasse. We're at a dreadful impasse. Let's figure it out together. And there's good things that could come out of this crazy times, but the wrecking ball is not my approach. But like you said, I am center right. I'm not really. I think most of America is center right. We don't all want everything for free. I said from a positive point of view, I said the Affordable Care Act had the wrong acronym. It should be the Available Care Act. If you want to be a small businessman, you can get health care under any circumstance. Suddenly it's available.
I'm a huge fan of the Affordable Care Act. I am
Right.
a huge
And
fan.
and
Huge fan.
and then
Doesn't
I
matter
am
which way I voted.
too.
I voted for that.
I am too. And then I said, some good came out of that. They always talk about how after that there was an influx of small business. It's because of just that. The guy that was sitting at a desk for 20 years, gaining weight, has diabetes, can suddenly go into his own consulting firm and still have insurance, leaving his corporate environment and his group plan.
We can afford healthcare. We didn't have health insurance for 10 years, and we can afford it now because of the Affordable Care Act. And so, for business owners like myself who, it's like definitely it's a huge thing and very positive. But I think that the concept here that I think we need to focus on is that, and kind of getting back, it's kind of rolling everything back, right? Um, Business ownerships, small business ownership, being a business owner, entrepreneur, the people that figure the things out, right, are the ones that succeed. Doesn't matter, and I say this, and people get mad at me. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. Doesn't matter who the policies are. We just have to adapt to the policies. Now we can agree or disagree with them. So, for an example of one, which we get too deep in this, you might see me get a little bit vocal or a lot vocal because this is my issue. Is in Florida 4 years ago, the state voted to saddle small business owners with a certain pay that they had to pay compensate their employees, which is the minimum wage going up every single year, which is an absolute travesty because we have an arbitrary number which we have to pay employees for doing jobs that it's not arbitrary, it's what it is, but it's an arbitrary raise. So on April 1st of this year, which is what, in 3 weeks, 2 3 weeks, 2 weeks, shoot, next week, whenever it is, I now have to give every one of my staff a raise. I'm being forced to by the state of Florida, right? So what's that going to do to my small business? Is it going to hurt my business? Maybe. What choice do I have now? Either I have to do it. Do I have less staff hours? Do I make less money? Do I raise my prices? But it's concepts and ideas like that that get me going because now this type of thing is hurting small businesses, I believe. And it's an idea that, again, we can agree that we need to compensate our employees properly, but should that be a government mandate? That's where the question lies. And should we allow the voters to vote on what I have to pay my employees? As far as I'm concerned, no. But that's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. And to be honest with you, getting back to the political side, one of the reasons my vote is generally going to be pushed to the right is that the people on the left want to arbitrarily tell me how much I can pay my staff, and that I don't think it is right. So that's just one of the issues. I'm not sure how I got down that rabbit hole, but that's one of the issues that I have that I'm kind of. And again, and I think it is a valuable conversation because it's boots on the ground, right? It's literally boots on the ground. So when you start talking about these political footballs, oftentimes as people speak, just talking about stuff that they feel, they read this on the internet, whatever, they saw it on some site somewhere, and they're just regurgitating stuff, or have a conversation with someone that literally is living the issue this very moment. And I think there's value in that.
Well, there is, and like I've always said, not just the minimum wage. Government doesn't need to mandate the minimum wage, and it is very much the left that mandates that creates that mandate. Very much. If you're an employer and there is no minimum wage, and you really think you're going to hire somebody for $5 an hour, you're probably not going to be an employer long.
You got to
So
be
there
better
is
at your
no
job,
real
better be an employer.
there is no real need for that mandate. As I even said, the mandate of masks and the mandate of, and we're not going really good, the mandate of vaccines. There was no need for that
Oh, we can go
mandate.
there if you want.
There was no need for it. If you
Strong
felt
opinions on
strongly
that too.
about wearing a mask, wear a freaking mask. I believe in vaccinations. I got vaccinated. It was nothing to do with a mandate. No, but I agree with you because you probably know more than me on that subject. But I did voluntarily. There was the mandate of in New York, they were mandating people stay home. They found out that people staying home were getting more COVID than the people walking about Central Park because the recycled air in these giant buildings. Um, so when it comes to mandates, when you say I'm center right or center left or I vote left or I vote right, I'm telling you where my party gets it wrong. I'm telling you they're still my party, but it
I
may not be forever because,
I
but
agree
really
completely.
switching to the other side is going to be not at all in this next 4 years, but there needs to be uh this discussion, whether it's via our my podcast or someone else's podcast, we're two normal human beings, good friends for nearly 5 or 6 or 7 years now. We've never argued about politics and we've crossed that line. We're okay with the subject. But there's people who simply aren't. And
Well, I would
those are the,
never argue about politics to begin with because of my mindset is I really want to kind of connect and understand people and I want people I want to talk to them. I'd love to dialogue with people about politics because I want to kind of see, hey, why do you think this way? Right? And I think at the end of the day, that's a good mindset to have, right? I'm not patting myself on the back, but I think that's a good mindset to have because I think there needs to be more understanding of people that have different views about different things. And at the end of the day, we all have to get up every day and do this thing called life, right? And what I believe is I really believe that the our quality of life is under control of us. There's other factors out there, and there's a lot to life, right? There's a lot of things that are going to go wrong, but I think that at the end of the day, the person you look at in the mirror when you get up is responsible for having that happy life and good life. Are there going to be challenges along the way? Sure, absolutely. And again, I'm in the fire right now. I'm in the fire, and that's why I like to talk about the minimum wage thing because it's an issue that directly affects me, and I have to make choices here in the next few weeks. So I'm in the fire with that. We were both in the fire a couple of years ago with the whole vaccine thing, right, and the mask thing. We were both in that fire. So hey, here's the mandate. You have to do this now. For whatever reason, you're and I don't. Anybody wants to get a vaccine, I don't care. Get a vaccine. I will not get a vaccine. But that's just me, my opinion. I don't tell people that. I don't encourage people to have my opinion because I research my opinion. I believe in mine. But there was a point where, what was it, 4 years ago? My wife and I were like, okay, there's going to be a vaccine mandate, right? And we knew it was coming. And we started seeing these different things. Okay, well, you're going to have a vaccine to go on a cruise. So we're like, well, we're not going on cruises then. You have to have a vaccine to fly. Well, we're not going to fly. I had family members saying, you're not going to come around my family if you don't have a vaccine. Okay, that's fine. But that's just those are the type of decisions that what I believe in. Then again, kind of the political mindset I have a little bit. I think that's a right for me to have. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I totally get the fact that okay, people are struggling to make ends meet, so we need to pay them a fair living wage. Totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Right? And I totally agree that people believe that the vaccine will help them and they need that because they have health issues, whatever. I totally support people doing that. But at the end of the day, I am of the opinion that, your house is more important than other people's house. You need to first get your stuff in order, right? Get your stuff in order. I used to write a blog. I used to write a lot. I still write from time to time, but one of the blogs I wrote, so one of my favorites is this. When you get on an airplane, right? What do they tell you when you get an airplane? So if the mask drops down, right? What do you do first? Put your own mask on, right? Doesn't matter if your 3-year-old's crying. Put your mask on. Help yourself first, then help other people. It doesn't mean you shouldn't help other people, And so I think that along those lines of those issues, like whether the mandates or the minimum wage, those things, I think everything's important. I think everyone has the right to do what they want to do, and I think that government interference and all that sometimes oversteps, sometimes is great. I appreciate the government for a lot of things, but I think it's a hard line, right? It's a hard gray line to kind of look at, and you want to pay your taxes to do stuff, but then sometimes you want to do it on your own. And I think it's a tough balance. It's a very tough
it's
balance.
It is, and like you said, the minimum wage is something I totally disagree with. The issue with the minimum wage is empowers big business. What happens with the minimum wages is you will be able to cover that increase, right? But if there's a shortage of employees, Publix will be able to pay $3 more an hour than you in an instant and steal your employees. So you could literally not have that minimum wage weight on your shoulder and say, I'm going to pay my three greatest employees more and they're because they can get it all done rather than the six that I had to pay this equal wage. And you're in a better shape there. And there is not to say there is this, and I think it's collusion between the Republicans and the Democrats to create an
Probably.
underclass. There is this, a lot of these policies there is are created so there is no incentive to excel in life, and one of them is minimum wage. Minimum wage is a you hire me at $15 an hour, you hire Billy Bob at $15 an hour. Billy Bob sits in the break room all day, I work my butt off. What's the point of working my butt off? I mean, I don't agree with minimum wage at all. You may say, you know
it's more of a left concept, if that makes sense,
It
right? And so,
is.
and again, I'm not, and again, and I think the minimum wage, Jeff, is a perfect example of why politics are so hard, and we need to talk more and have dialogues. It's like, something like that, whether you're right or left, we may kind of agree an issue. Cool, let's start there, and let's go to things we don't agree on and try to figure out a way. I think at the end of the day, the importance, it all goes back to kind of go back to originally kind of why I'm here. I've been someone over time figured out how to get by, how to do it. And I think that, again, getting back to the minimum wage thing, I think that when you're younger, you have to start to learn the skill of or the mindset of, hey, I'm doing this job. So when our employees start at Power Meal Prep, right? Again, in the trenches, they're doing dishes. And the dish area training takes literally 5 minutes. Here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. Here's where it goes. Go, right? There's absolutely no skill involved in that. No skill whatsoever. Now, that being said, and so that's where people should start. When you're 15 years old, I want a job. Okay, here you go, $7 an hour. What are you doing with that money? Well, I'm gonna buy some candy, whatever, play some video games, whatever you're doing with the money. Now, as you get older, again, get back to personal responsibility, which I think we can agree on is an important thing. As we get older, you have one of three options, right? Get better at doing dishes so you can pay more. Hey, I'm really good at dishes now. Can I get paid more? Yes, right? Or, hey, what else can I do at this job, right? That I can get paid more,
Right.
right? And so at my job, so you start in dishes, you become a helper, you become a lead, you become an assistant manager, you become manager, and you get the opportunity to deliver. Those are what you have at our thing. We had this kid that started, Jaden, set him on dishes, minimum wage. He wasn't very good. I'm not going to lie. Hopefully, Jaden won't listen to this. Well, maybe he does. He knows he was terrible, right? So let's find a different job for you. Oh, becoming a station lead, he was good at. So guess what? Now he's an assistant manager, and he's in line to be a manager, and he delivers now for us too. So he got these opportunities because he got better at his job, right? So you can get better at your job. You can raise up in the company. You can find a different job too. I mean, there's those things. But the other thing is like, and this is part of the get a different job. The other option is this: develop skills. Get your high school diploma. Go to college. Take a course. Learn how to do stuff. Learn how to build a business. Learn how to develop a business. So you want to make more money. You want to have more. Develop more skills. The problem is this: we get people that are, for whatever reason, entering, re-entering the workforce, changing jobs, and they don't have skills, right? So someone's coming in, they're 30 years old, they've been going from no skill, no skill, no skill, job, 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 and not gaining skills, not investing in themselves, and they expect to make $15 an hour at 30 years old doing whatever. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I want to make that money because I'm entitled to it. And the reality is you're not. You've taken the last 15 years, you haven't invested in yourself. So for me, I'll give myself an example here, even though I'm a business owner. Hey, I want to make more money. I want to do something different. So I found a skill, right? Which my skill is managing social media pages. Something I'm good at. I got my education. I got the skills. I learned how to do it. I did all the things. And now I can charge a premium amount of money to other people and build a business by doing that because I went through all the process. And I didn't expect to make a minimum, whatever wage because I was entitled to it. Because that's my value. So again, getting back, you asked one of the first questions you asked. How do we teach kids? We got to teach kids to build value in themselves, be more valuable. And what we're teaching kids, I keep going back to minimum wage. We're teaching kids by giving a minimum wage, saying this: oh, no, you're entitled. Don't worry about your skills. We're just going to pay you more. And that concept is a bad concept. And so that's what we're teaching our kids. So you say, okay, how can we improve? Well, we're not improving. We're not improving, and we tell when I tell all my helpers, by the way, I'm not giving you a raise because you're better. I'm giving you a raise because I have to, and you're entitled because that's what was voted on by the state of Florida, right? Which, again, I know this is something we're not arguing about. We're kind of beating a dead horse, but I think there's so much value in looking at the bigger picture to all of this. And you asked the huge, important, awesome question: hey, how do we teach our kids to build, to do what you've done? How do we teach our kids to have a better life? How do we teach our kids to want more? Well, that's how you do it. You don't tell them that you deserve more because you just deserve more because the state voted it. We have to tell our kids, hey, I had one of our employees. I don't know why I keep mentioning names, but I will because what the hell? Give them some props. Then we have a girl, Savannah. She's super young. I think she's 15. She's just turning. Actually, she just had her birthday. She's 16. And when she was 15, 6 months ago, I took her aside and said, listen, I'm going to give you a raise to pay you the same as the more, the employees have been here a while. I'm going to give you a raise because you're really good, and that really made her feel good because she was really good. She's great, and she's 15 years old running stations and stuff by herself. I'm like, perfect. I'm giving you more money, and I got other people. I'm like, I'm not giving them any more money unless I have to, because they're not. But the point there is like, everything in life, Jeff, everything in life is under your control. And when I say everything, obviously you don't mean everything, but most things in life are under control. And your own happiness and success is under your control. And that's what we need to teach our youth. That's what we need to teach our kids. That's what we need to teach grown ass adults who are expecting to make $18 an hour because they think they're entitled to it. It's like, no, you go work. If someone comes in my place, I don't care how old they are, minimum wage, and I've mostly high school kids, but I do have an adult that works for me, and she got it. She's like, yeah, whatever the pay is, I'll take it. Need a job, and I'm like, perfect. But she's risen up too and gotten more money too. But we need to teach our people that first add value, then get. Sorry, my dog.
No, no,
So
she's adorable. So I totally agree, Rick. I totally, totally agree with you. The only thing I continue to, I search for answers on this podcast a lot of times, and you've answered a lot of the questions that, but as far as going to college, there was a example. Charles Koch wrote a book from the bottom up, and he talks about how some of corporate America hires the biggest geniuses out of college, and they have no work skills. Just like you said, they have no skills, and corporate America is spending billions just getting them to the point where they can do the job. Yeah, mentally they can navigate the job, but as far as functional skills, they can't navigate the job. And there's a lot of that. And so, like, just like you said, you hire a kid in and you give him these fundamental skills of doing something simple like dishwashing. It's a responsibility. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you how to do something right. Admiral Craven says, start your day by making your bed, because if you make your bed, it's the little things in life. If you start with the little
love
things,
that.
if you
Love that
don't
book.
start with the little things, you'll never be able to do the big things.
I bought that guy's book and I absolutely
I
love it.
know, and I
I've
listen to
listened
his
to that
videos
video several
sometimes.
times.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. There's others too. Um, but I don't have the answers. I literally just had a 1 hour phone conversation with Bill Matthews. He's now retiring from the school board. I said, I'm thinking about running for the school board. I was glad I called him because, like he said, you really have, as a member of the school board, you have no influence on curriculum. Yeah, you have the superintendent's ear, but as far as our job, it's just budgeting. Really, that was the big part of it.
Yeah.
That's not my thing. What if
Yeah.
I would have jumped into running for a position as a school board member, just hypothetically, and sure, it's 1 in a million. I'm not saying, and I won, and then I realized it's not even a job I want. We're talking about the budget for the last 6 meetings. I don't even understand the numbers anymore. I've lost them in the first meeting. So
I think this conversation has been amazing, but I think we're agreeing too much. So I don't want to disagree with something. So I think there's way too much agreement. We need to disagree so we can,
yeah,
I agree with I disagree with the fact that you said that there are answers, and I say that in jest. And you say, "Wow, you give me some answers." As soon as we start thinking that we're getting answers, that's when the dialogue kind of stops, right? You see kind of where I'm going with that?
yeah,
When
absolutely.
what we should be seeking is not answers, but more questions. And I like this format. And so again, we'll jump back to politics because that's fun. One of the things that was talked about, I've heard this talked about several times, and one of the reasons that President Trump kind of did well in the election against Kamala Harris is has to do with the Joe Rogan podcast. So Donald Trump went on the Joe Rogan podcast and he talked to Joe Rogan for 3 hours. And what he was able to do is what we're doing. Let's talk. Let's not be a snippet society. Let's not be a soundbite society where someone says one thing, it gets spread around viral, and that's the word. That's everything. Let's be a society where we engage in a longer format and discuss more. And instead of saying, hey, here's my question, here's my answer. Well, there's your answer. Well, let's ask another question, right? Let's try to find more answers to those questions and let's dive deeper into that. And so anybody that happens to be listening to this and thinks I'm some sort of right-wing nut just because I listen to the Joe Rogan
Oh, I
podcast,
listen to Joe Rogan.
don't think that, because I'm not. And hopefully anybody that listens to this understands. Because I had people, I'll be honest with you, I had a couple of customers that just stopped ordering because of my political, what I said with regarding politics. And really and it wasn't even political. It's more along the lines of, hey, let's talk about stuff, let's get together and whatever. And that's how sensitive people can be. People can be remarkably sensitive. But I want people to understand, regardless of which way I swing politically in terms of where I voted, I have different thoughts on all the different issues. And so, and I really want to, and I appreciate the process. And that's why when I saw you, and I'm like, I would love to sit and talk politics or business ownership or whatever, because I think that there's too much of this, hey, this, like the Facebook post memes, like, oh my gosh, look what this person did. Look what this, it's like, you know what? Those are not issues. Those are sound bites of issues. Those are the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more, right? There's so much more involved in politics and issues and all of this stuff. And just like building a business, it all goes back to, hey, you want to be an entrepreneur? What you're seeing is the iceberg. You're seeing the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to it. There's so much more work you have to do. I could list you for an hour the different things I have to do on a daily basis to run, 6 companies, and a lot of it is just crappy busy work that I hate doing. I'd rather do this. I'd rather do, I have another call here in a few minutes. I'd rather be doing that and connecting with people than, paying my bills and checking my statements, talking to the inspector, but, there's so much more. The point there is this, there's so much more to life than sound bites. And that's where, when it comes to like, hey, there's answers. No, there's not answers. Let's ask more questions. Let's talk about this. And at the end of the day, I think too many of us, are on social media only agreeing and shouting from the rooftops with our concept. People are defriending each other because, oh, your view is not my view. I only want to talk to people who have my view. That's not me. I want to talk to people that have every views. I don't want to see people saying their side of the story only and saying this is the only way. I wanted to have conversations, and that's why I really appreciate the opportunity here to talk to you. I want to have conversations about people that are more expansive, that go beyond just like, hey, here's, vote for this person, vote for this person. If you voted for this person, you have no morals. If you voted for this person, you're this, you're that. And it's like, no, absolutely not. So at the end of the day, that whole thing, I just do want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about these issues. I do
I am
appreciate
so
it.
glad you considered this an opportunity. I am very thankful you decided to do the show. I never thought when I ran into you, I thought he'll just tell me to jump in the lake. So I am really glad you decided to do the show. And I want to do it again down the road. I'm going to reach out to you while we'll see each other. We'll cross paths again. We've got a lot
Yeah.
to talk about. We've talked about a lot. Like you said, this is real conversation. This isn't me putting out some snippet on Facebook. This is going to be published in its entirety. This is going to be on Spotify. This could be on Apple Podcasts. This could be on YouTube. This could be on published on advertised on Facebook and available on Facebook. I really do appreciate everything you said. I really appreciate the time you spent with me just talking to me and allowing me this opportunity to make this part of my podcast. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Rick Copley, owner. Tell us about yourself, really.
Well, first of all, it's Copley, and I forgive you for messing up my last name. It happens all the time.
Sorry, Rick
Um,
Copley.
all I want people to do is to follow me on Facebook. All the stuff I do, I kind of talk a little bit about on my Facebook, but I really try on Facebook too. My goal has been kind of like what we talked about here, is just to kind of change the vibration a little bit. And I decided a long time ago not to necessarily have political type discussions or do a lot of opinionated stuff, but I just share value, share good stuff, share things that can help people. And the big thing I kind of want to talk about in terms of promotion, I know it didn't come here to do a lot of promotion, but I do run people's social media for them, and I do have a company called DFR Social. And what we do is we run people's social media for them. And so if that's something people are interested in, they can reach out to me on Facebook, and I'm happy to share what we do and give them a little presentation and to see if we can help them. So that's what I got going on.
Thank you so much, Rick. It's been great. It's been a great conversation, and I will. I'm sure I will be talking to you soon.
Yeah, man.
Thank you,
Thanks for
sir.
having me. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate having you. Thanks for being on. I appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Have a great day, everybody.